time has come. We must leave racial battleground and come to economic common ground and moral higher ground. America, our time has come.
Before Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump, there was Jesse Jackson. In 1984 and 1988, Jackson shocked the political establishment by rallying the votes of millions of Americans with his populist platform, a message of economic populism that a new generation of politicians continues to channel, including Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani here in New York City. I explore Jackson's life and legacy in my new book that is out today. It's called A Dream Deferred, Jesse Jackson and the Fight for Black Political Power. And this book really is about where the kind of present day conversation about economic populism and also social justice, where it goes from here, because it started with Jesse Jackson. And there are so many candidates who are still trying to figure it out in different ways.
It's not just candidates. I mean, you have people who are talking about it. I hope like people like somebody I've never met, but Ezra Klein, who's kind of weighing into this battle, actually picks up your book, because I think that he and Bernie Sanders kind of missed the point about who Jesse Jackson really was. And when I'm talking about his 1988 speech, which was just a badass speech, when he talked about his grandmother's quilt and the fact that each American had a patch for that quilt, but it wasn't enough. And it took the patch of African Americans championing civil rights and Hispanic Americans championing citizenship. And he talked about those things. And today we call it like identity politics or whatever, but it was populism on a large level, but identifying the intricacies that one brought to the table because of their background and the color of their skin. Jesse was a bad man before his time.
Let me play a little bit from the 88 speech.
Did you say a bad man?
A bad man. That's a
Colloquialism.
colloquialism.
Yeah,
that
he
means
means that
good.
in a
Well,
good way.
I was.
Can I just play? I want to play a little bit from that 88 speech because Bakari is right about the threads of sort of like, what we have in common. But here's the other piece of that speech about how the battle has shifted.
Leadership must meet the moral challenge of its day. What's the moral challenge of our day? We have public accommodations. We have the right to vote. We have open housing. What's the fundamental challenge of our day? It is to end economic violence. Plant closing without notice, economic violence. Even the greedy do not profit long from greed, economic violence.
And so, Betsy, I know you probably disagree with the Mamdanis of the world, but the common denominator in those messages, and even in Trump's message, remember carnage, American carnage? Mm-hmm. This idea that the American middle class, the working class is being hollowed out. All of these politicians are talking about the same thing, fundamentally.
I think that's true, and it's brilliant that you've written this book. Congratulations. And Jesse Jackson is clearly a very important original figure in this trend. I think it's unfortunate that he's also identified as something of a con artist or a blackmailer. For example, in 1998, when Travelers and Citigroup wanted to merge, he opposed it vehemently until he got a $150,000 gift from them, and then he changed his mind. And I remember, actually, when I was running for governor as a Democrat in the Democratic primary in 1998, I met with Jesse Jackson in that front booth at the Regency Hotel, and I got up from that meeting thinking, the cost is too much. I just felt too uncomfortable about the demands he made. And so, I think that he's a complex figure. He's a bad boy, and yet he made very important.
But what I'm asking about is when we look at today and we look at why Democrats have lost union voters and working class voters and why people like Bernie Sanders are fighting to get them back, there are a lot of reasons why a message about economic violence resonates.
I think with the Democratic Party, you just touched on something so important, and polling reinforces this. The Democratic Party kind of moved away from the economic populist message and focused on purity politics.
Correct.
Identity politics, but I even hesitate to say identity politics because what Jesse Jackson was able to do was not neglect the issues that impact people who have been treated unfairly in this country for a long time based on the color of their skin, based on their identity. He was able to hold two important issues together simultaneously, right? Economic justice for all, not based on your skin color, not based on your background, but based on the fact that you are an American and this is supposed to be the land of opportunity.
But it's also the framing of the question that Abby just asked, which drives me crazy many times because of the fact that when we talk about, and when my friends who are to the left of me or white liberals talk about the working class voters, right? Or they talk about union voters and they say Democrats are losing those voters. They're talking about the white working class and they're talking about the white union voters. And so what I think we have to do is, like Jesse did, hone this message together where we're weaving these fabrics together and say, yeah, there is a working class black Detroit union worker that needs to hear our message as well.
Absolutely.
And we also have this white guy who's trying to make those ends meet. And maybe if we can get them to sit down at a table together, we can have a more perfect union. But
hey,
Like
we could talk
us.
about this for a lot longer. Everyone, thank you very much for being here. We will be back in just a moment.